Hello everyone and welcome back to Harvest Moon Wonderful Life Special Edition. This is Showboat, and today I am using my PlayStation 4 controller because for some reason the PS3 controller must be like out of battery. I suppose it didn't wanna connect, and for some reason it wasn't being detected even when I put the little mini USB into it, so whatever, today we're using the PS4 controller because I know this actually works when hooked up by a cord. Yeah, anyway. Today we are starting up the 9th day of summer of year 2. I do not need to save before going to bed. I always need to think before I hit that save button. It's like, do I really want to do what this is asking me to do? No, I do not. Buzz. Yeah, wake up. I much prefer the PlayStation 4 controller anyway over the PlayStation 3, so it should be a lot better. Yeah, morning. I have one of those white and gray ones because I got a oh, that would be why I don't use this controller. Oh. Right, I think I have tried using... Yeah, I think I have tried using this before, but it hates the diagonals. Alright, so we're gonna be old school today. And, not... trying to not walk on diagonals whenever we can, because it's slow. Hi? I don't even know why I'm doing this with the ducks. They give me nothing. I'm just gonna say, screw the ducks. I'm just gonna go in to check if they need food each day, and that's about it. See, I can go forward, and I can change the camera angle, but that's about it. If I try going to the side, bad things tend to happen. Hold on, I'm gonna try and get that PlayStation 3 controller working again. Alright, so I got the cord, I'm plugging in. And juice! Flashy 1 through 4. It flashed and now it's not flashy anymore. Let's unhook you. Let's push that button. And we're good to go. Alright, cool. PlayStation 3 controller now officially working. I don't know why it wasn't working before. Anyway, because now we can actually walk. We can actually walk now. Isn't that glorious? So this is the evening edition of Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. So when this is being recorded, goes up Thursday at 2. Hi? Alrighty then. So as to why it's the evening edition, I've been working on my research, basically. I have a meeting tomorrow. Yes, I have a meeting with my advisor tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's rather crazy, but what are you gonna do? That's what his schedule dictated as was a free time to meet. And all day today I have been incorporating the edits to my figures that my classmates suggested when they looked over it last Wednesday. and I've been holding off on it because it honestly takes a long time, and for one, I also had I did have a final exam on Monday that I was trying to prepare for. So there was that. I started work on it yesterday, but I was only really getting into it today. And yeah, sure enough, it lasted like the entire day. It's like 8 o'clock right now, because it's lasted so long. So what exactly was I having to do? Well, what took a lot of the time was redoing the images. Basically, I had to redo my images from scratch, the vast majority of them, in order to just straight up get rid of all of the rulers that most of my images had a ruler for scale. So what was suggested is that since the rulers take up so much space in the image, just get rid of the rulers and put in a manual, smaller scale bar. So I did that for all of those images across several figures, which was interesting. That also managed to allow me to enlarge a number of images so that you could actually see stuff better. All the different little trace fossils and bird footprint fossils that I wanted to be able to show on them. And I think they've turned out a lot better because of that. And as I said, that took a lot of time. Early, though, this morning, the first thing I worked on was my map. What they suggested with the map was to get like an actual USGS vector map and use that, because they didn't like the map projection that was being used for the previous one, because essentially I had taken and copied over a figure from another paper. Redrafted is the term. A figure from another paper, and they didn't actually have a real map projection that they were using, and they didn't say what they were using for it. So they're like, okay, so you should use an actual map that's USGS and is an actual projection. It's like, okay, I'll do that. So I did that. It took a while to find exactly, but I did eventually find what I was looking for. A blank continental US map that doesn't have any state names on it, unfortunately. It's just a line map of the continental US. No Hawaii, no Alaska, no any of that. And it also had a scale on it, which was nice, which I replaced with my own. And because it's a vector file, I could manipulate it however I wanted, whatever size I wanted. But what I could also do was I could take the specific states that I needed and enlarge them, like copy them, and then paste and enlarge, so that the US map was an inset of a larger blow-up of the 3 particular states I was interested in showing, which was Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. It's like those 3 were the 3 that I was interested in showing, because in those 3 you have the greater like basin area of like what I'm working on, where my original slabs are from. My slabs are from Utah, but they're part of this overall system that was huge. This big lake system during the Eocene that existed that was across all three of those states. So it's like, okay. And there's a lot of other research that's in those other areas of the other states, so that's why I wanted to show that. So there was that, and there's a few other edits I needed to make, smaller ones, didn't take too much time on that particular image, but the other thing that they said was that it was originally sized for 2 columns, and they suggested maybe it should be 1 column, because there's a lot of white space just in the actual maps. So I was like, okay, I'll make a version that's 1 column, and we shall see how that actually looks. I'll talk with my advisor tomorrow, and we'll decide whether or not to stick with the 2 column or go with the smaller 1 column. I think it will be really hard to see a 1 column width, because when we're making these figures, even though it'll be published in an mainly online publication as PDFs, which is where a lot of scientific journals are going these days, there will be people who would be interested in reading it who don't have access to computers, who have to read printouts. So we always have to think, how does it look on a printout? Wow, an actual shark. I've seen a lot of those recently. I don't really know why. So I don't know how a 1 column width version of the map will look exactly when printed. I think it would end up having elements that are too small, specifically on the inset US map. But anyway, that's just something I'll need to talk with my advisor about tomorrow. As for other things, last night I worked on the more diagrammatic figures rather than the images. Like, today was mostly about the images and not as much the diagrammatic stuff. I don't really consider a map a diagrammatic figure. It's more image type, even though the work on it is mostly the same as diagram. But anyway, the diagram figures, they were mostly okay. I just needed to change a couple of things. Like, I had a lot of dashed lines on one because I was trying to visually represent definitions for, like, track length, like lengths and widths, and like specific lengths and widths for tracks, trackways, pace, stride, stuff like that. And instead of having those words specifically on the figures, it was suggested that I just have symbols, like come up with symbols for all of these. So it's like, okay, I'll use symbols. So I came up with a symbol system, including symbols for like angle measurements as well. So it's like, yeah, this'll be all right. I did that. It was fairly quick and fairly painless. But I had dashed lines to help to visualize the actual locations that I was looking at. So I would have a dashed line coming out from like the tip of a toe for looking at the length of a track. Actually, it'd probably be easier to explain the width. So for the width of the track, say from the 2 widest, like furthest apart toes from each other on a bird foot, you have the one that's on the left and the one that's on the right. The width is the measure from the tip of the toe on the left to the tip of the toe on the right. So it's essentially a solid black line that goes from the tip of the toe from the one to the tip of the toe on the other, but it's offset above them and then dashed lines vertically down to the tips of the 2 digits. And there were a lot of lines on this one particular image that was talking about like lengths and widths and all sorts of different stuff. So it's like, okay, differentiate all of the dotted lines, dashed lines actually. So it's like, okay, I'll differentiate each of the dashed lines so that it's easier to tell what is what, essentially, for that one. What else? What else did I do? I did a fair bit, actually. Oh, I had to get rid of, essentially watermark scales on microscope images. That was fun. Actually, it's pretty simple when you are actually doing it. So when I had taken pictures under a microscope, we have this nice microscope camera. The software can put down a scale bar for you. The thing is, the scale bar is vastly different from every other scale bar, so any scope image you could tell was a scope image and done differently than everything else. It wasn't consistent, for one, with the other images. So part of the overall theme was use consistent means of making scales. And the other thing was, when it put down all the scales were 5mm scales. And the label was 5mm. The problem was that there wasn't a space between the 5 and the millimeters. There wasn't a space there. They were right up against each other. So that was mentioned. It's like, it shouldn't be that way. There needs to be a space there. It's like, yeah, alright, there needs to be a space there. So I had to figure out how to get rid of the scale bars that were on the images, because those were part of the images. I didn't put them there in Illustrator. They were just part of the images. So the way to get rid of them is in Photoshop, use the magic wand tools to select the scales, expand the selection by a couple pixels, and then fill with a content-aware fill, which isn't perfect. It works better on the original images before I grayscale them and shrink them and crop them. Well, actually, I don't crop those particular images, but you get my meaning, is that for some of them, I had to go further back in the chain of events of image manipulation in order for it to not look like crap. I mean, you could tell that something had been removed on the original, but when you shrink it down to the actual size that I'm using for the figures, it goes away. Like, you can't see it anymore. And as far as I'm concerned, on all the images that I've done it on, even when printed, you'll never be able to tell that something else was there in those locations. Because in those locations, you now have scale bars that are overlapping, that are, for one, bigger than the original scale bars, and then the letters overlap the older letters. Not perfectly, but they still overlap the older letters. So, yeah, it's been tedious. I think that's been the theme of the day, is just tedium. Most definitely, tedium has been the theme of the day. But that tedium, I think, has certainly paid off in the end. I am very satisfied with all of the results thus far. And there are a whole bunch of other things that I'm not even mentioning right now because it's hard to even remember all of the things that I've done on these images in one day. It's like I did make a checklist to go through, but it's like there's no real point. I mean, I sort of mentioned everything. So yeah, on the map, I used USGS vector, I added a continental US, like added the words United States of America to the US map inset. That's another thing they wanted me to do. I had Paleo Lakes on there that, because it has to be grayscale, they ended up being the same gray color as what I used to shade in the states, the specific states, to like get an idea of location on the US map of where these states are, because, you know, people don't know. Some people just don't know where Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado are. So I put that like that, and they didn't like it. They said you have to differentiate the lakes from the state shading, which was fine. I differentiated it. I used diagonal lines for the lakes instead. I had to move my scale bar. Made it one column. Removed Alaska and Hawaii, because originally it had Alaska and Hawaii on the state map. On the continental US map. So I got rid of all that. Oh yeah, I fixed the alignment of all of my like labels, like A, B, C, D, and stuff like that. Had to do that. I killed all of the rulers. All of them. All the rulers died. Zoomed in on a number of images. Fixed a lot of like issues with lighting. Added a few missing scale bars, actually. Zoomed in, yeah. A lot of the problems were across all of them. It's like, yeah, it's just an issue that was present in a lot of things, so going through and fixing that issue in a lot of things just took a lot of time. It took a lot of time. Oh, and then there's one figure that people didn't even look at that I worked on as well, that I had wanted to work on, and that was an actual angle figure that I have made to look beautiful now. It looks pretty. It wasn't ready to have people look at it last week, but now it's pretty good. Please be a huge. Oh, it's just a rainbow. Oh well. So I have successfully gone through this entire day just talking about my own research and what I've done today. I'll mention that in the mail I received my final bits of manga, my final volumes of manga for the year. I have no more coming on the way for the rest of the year. I received Sword Art Online 6 light novel. It's Phantom Bullet, which is pretty nice. Attack on Titan 17 manga. And Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon Volume 4 light novel. Those arrived this week. I think Tuesday, actually. Don't know why I didn't mention it on Tuesday when I recorded the video. I guess I forgot. Alright, so that has been the 9th day of summer. With that, I would like to thank you all for watching. All this has been Showboat. And I'm just realizing I didn't record Tuesdays, so yeah, whatever. I'm mentioning that I got the things today. Well, I got them yesterday, but oh, never mind. I got things. Those are the things I got in the mail. Ugh, terrible ending. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'll see you all on the next one, which is going to be recorded Friday. And then the last one for a good while for the year will be recorded on Sunday. You'll see it on Monday, and I will be on a plane. Actually, I'll be on a plane. I'll probably be like flying from Detroit to Norfolk at the time it goes live. So I'll see you all on the next one.